I sent a text to Dre. I was working and watching some old Alabama games, but it made me think about Julio Jones and how huge he was as far as key piece for Alabama starting, that dynasty and just what they are now. And I wonder if JJ could be that for Michigan, where, and maybe it's not going to be the type of dynasty that Alabama is right now, but just taking that next step or taking that jump for Michigan, could JJ be that first piece that now number one starts to recruit other guys, because we've seen that he's inviting other guys he used to play with, so on and so forth, to come to Michigan. And could it start that trend where Michigan is now getting more 5 stars than they did before and getting more high level 4-star guys. So I thought about that and wondered if there could be a parallel there where, JJ would be essentially Michigan's Julio Jones.
Absolutely. And that's why I said, like, winning this year, can you imagine the impact of JJ McCarthy being the starter this upcoming fall? He leads Michigan to I'll be a little bit conservative with the record. Let's say Michigan finishes 9 to 10 wins. But one of those wins is Ohio State, right? And JJ's playing well, right? Can you imagine that'll help his recruiting pitch? You know what I'm saying? He's a young quarterback, plenty of years of eligibility left. He gets some more talented guys there. And all of a sudden, like I said, you get to quickly flip. You can't rewrite the history, but you can flip momentum in a rivalry. I don't think momentum carries season to season, but I do think that it can translate season to season in terms of a one game rivalry where you feel the pressure, you feel the angst, and I think that's what's hurt Michigan so many years against Ohio State is that Ohio State would do like that punch in the mouth, and you could see it in the players' face. They get deflated, and all of a sudden they could see like the floodgates open. And I think this year was the year they kind of really changed that. But that's why I think this fall, in terms of, I'm not saying it's going to make or break JJ McCarthy's career at Michigan, but in terms of, is his career going to be that linchpin in changing the trajectory of the program? I think winning in Ohio State would be huge for that. Huge for that.
To me, Michigan obviously just beat Ohio State and beat them soundly, and they won the Big Ten championship and got to a playoff. They had a better season than Ohio State. Ohio State still did, won a bunch of games and finished whatever they did, fifth or sixth in the country. But Michigan, decidedly, it's not up for debate. They had a better season and beat them head to head. If Michigan does that a second consecutive year, then I'll be the first one to say Michigan is in first place in this conference. They are not just in the standings in first place. They've done this 2 consecutive years. They are now the team in the conference, the program in the conference, to me.
Would you say the same thing, Mark, if Georgia does that, it wins the SEC again this year?
That's a good parallel there. I do appreciate that one, because even though Alabama's closed out their seasons more successfully than Ohio State, basically there was a winning percentage chart for the last 10 years that's been thrown around social media in the last couple of weeks, and it's Alabama's number 1, Ohio State's number 2, and they're way out in front of everybody else. But Alabama's won those national championships. But inside the conference, they've pretty much owned those conferences in a similar fashion. So that's a great point. That, I guess, if I'm going to be consistent, I would say yes. Although Georgia didn't decidedly have the better season than Alabama. They did play another game, and Alabama won by 17 points. Alabama did still win the SEC championship game. So I don't see it quite as clear cut myself.
That's an interesting one. I would say yes for Michigan, no for Georgia.
Of
And
course you
almost
will.
more so because, well, I think of it this way. Alabama can get to where they want to be without playing Georgia. It's going to be extremely hard for Michigan to get where they want to be without beating Ohio State. Like, they play every single year, whereas Michigan, Alabama, and Georgia, they don't play every year, and we've already seen both those teams can play, one of them lose, and both of them still get to where they want to be. I don't think that's going to happen with Michigan and Ohio State. I think that the Big Ten is a very tough conference, but even, I mean, with is great of a season that Michigan had last year, and I do think they had a great season, they still had a loss to Michigan State going into that Ohio State game. So, and also Ohio State had a loss going into that game as well. So that's why I think, and like Mark said, I think with Alabama closing closing the deal, so to speak, on getting the national championships, I think that makes it a little different as well. So I will gladly be inconsistent and say I think it would be for Michigan. I would not say the same for Georgia.
I give all credit to Georgia for winning a national championship. They did it fair and square. But I think that there are some considerations in play. Again, they did play an earlier game, and Alabama won by 17 points. Alabama did win the conference still, and Alabama was missing its two biggest threats on offense in that game. And injuries are part of the game, so I'm not trying to take a championship away from Georgia in any such way. But
and there's some people of the thought that if you don't win your conference, you shouldn't be in. I mean, I don't agree with that. I think
Michigan was just more decisively the better team this past year to me than Georgia, Alabama.